Hey, folks, welcome to this episode of the Pivot Play Podcast. I'm Jerry A. Thompson. I'm here for this episode with the phenomenal Bryant Pugh. Brian and I go back a long ways, but we'll get to some of that. But, as I stated in our opening, Bryant is a world-class musician, just phenomenal. My version of a true Renaissance man. His interests go way beyond music. So I'm just too excited to get myself together. So we're just going to jump in. What's going on, Bryant?
What's up, man? Thank you so much for those lovely compliments.
So here's
everything that you just said.
Listen, I'm probably going to use the word awesome, amazing, phenomenal a lot. It's just because my vocabulary, public schools, I'm doing the best I can. So,
I hear you.
But I'm going to, So we were talking just briefly. So you and I met each other many, many years ago in 1980 something. You were brought in as a hired gun for live recording from our home church back in the day.
And you were the keyboardist.
I was the other, well, so we're going to get to this too. Do you remember your nickname back then?
I do not. I never knew I had a nickname back then.
Oh, you absolutely had a nickname.
I did. Okay.
Yes. It was Video Eyes.
Okay. And why?
You were called Video Eyes because it said anything that you saw somebody play, you could play.
Oh.
If you saw it once, you just played it. So let's go to this and we'll talk about, how what you've done over the years with music. Let's talk about where you started. Like you're native Philadelphia or?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Philadelphia. I didn't get started in music. I was 14 years old. I started late.
No, you didn't start late. I started late. I started when I was 18. When you met me, I've been playing like a year and a half.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that's
well,
like
maybe I'm comparing myself to so many people that started when they was 3 and 4 years old.
Yeah. Or the Willises, or the Darren Millers, people holding down whole services when they was 9 and 10.
Right.
Those type cats. Yeah. So talk about how you got started.
Well, I was in church, most of my childhood and adult too. And I was intrigued by the organist at the church. Now I couldn't play. So after church, I would go sit on the organ and the pastor's wife would chase me off. Next week come around, she'd do the same thing. She was like, get off the organ. You can't play. Get off. So she would, and she was mean to me. So I would get off. Next week after church, I'm right back on the organ. Couldn't play nothing, but just sitting there. And so finally, the pastor came to me and says, look, if you going, I see that we can't get rid of you off the organ. So this is what I'm going to do. If you're going to play in this church, you're going to learn how to read music. So I'm going to hire you a teacher.
Wow.
And he's going to come to your house and give you lessons. So he hired, I really didn't want to teach it because I was really intrigued by the guy that played the organ at the church.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, I would sit up under the lesson and tape everything that he would play. But my pastor hired a teacher. It was a Russian classical pianist that would come to my house in North Philly in the hood and give me lessons once a week.
Wow.
Probably where like a little bit of my classical style came from. He tried to make me into a concert pianist, and that's not really the direction I wanted to go in.
Right.
But, some valuable lessons learned. And I just, learned from that organist, and I was just so intrigued that I would tape. Back then we had tape recorders, and I would tape what he would play, go back home and try to pick stuff out on the piano.
Right.
Mom is a pianist as well, but she played like old timey stuff, so I was like really intrigued by this organist.
Okay, so I didn't know I didn't know that was your start. So again, similarity is, so I spent a portion of my childhood in Detroit. So I was around Twinkie, Thomas Whitfield, Gregory Troy, Andre Woods, just Craig Brothers, like just around that feel, like the Winans were there. That's where Commission came from.
Could have just stopped at Thomas Whitfield.
So I was,
You could have just stopped at Thomas Whitfield.
Yeah. And he was a guy who was truly ahead of his time.
Absolutely.
Right, in terms of what he did with music. But when it came to the Hammond organ, it was just intoxicating to me. It was just, it had me from the very beginning. And so that kind of drew me into it. And I had a cousin who plays. And when I was in my senior year of high school, I took him to school with me and got access to a grand piano. And he just played a bunch of songs. I recorded them on a tape recorder. And literally, that's what I really learned to play from, is just, I just listened to that thing over and over again. And I played other instruments, and I took a couple theory classes in high school. And so that was sort of my basis to having a structure to what I was doing. But it's still it's interesting that that's the route that you came up. So when we met, and it's the other thing that maybe you don't know that people say this about you as a musician, but your precision is just phenomenal. Like, I've never believed that you've ever hit a key that you did not intend to hit, right? Just the way you intended to hit it. It's just, you know. So I don't know where your timing in that part of your field came from. I was actually a drummer first too. So
there's a pianist that told me, if you don't intend to play the note, don't play it. He said, I don't want to hear no ghost notes.
Oh, wow.
Play what you mean, and then don't add nothing else to it.
Okay. Is that
just like you talking? Say what you want to say. I don't need to hear all the gibberish. So I kind of like applied that to music.
Okay, and clearly it's worked for you. It wasn't too long ago. I didn't know we were going to be doing this episode, but it wasn't too long ago. I actually went back and listened to that recording. Right, I still have it. Yeah, and you know, and so this is, and again, some of the people who watch this will be musicians. A lot of them are not. But when you have a rhythm section, a band, it is built around something. Right. So the sound for that album really was built around you as a keyboard player, as the pianist, right? Everything else surround.
I wish I could hear it.
Oh, I can get it to you,
please.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then you go back and, you know, like Al Ingram, Garfield. You know, it was just great. Sweet Rain Records, right? That was the time. Right. And so you look at that and the place of just Philadelphia in music, right? I don't care what the genre is. Philadelphia has made its mark in terms of music. And we've had some really, really phenomenal musicians and singers to come out of the city. But I think what happened in that time frame, even leading up into the 90s, you know, Wilton Chester and all that, like, you've obviously played a big part in, as far as I'm concerned, what has become known as the Philadelphia sound. You just ingrained in it.
I never would think of myself like that. That's a phenomenal compliment.
Well, I mean, just the facts are what they are, right? And again, we could go down that list of just the great music that has come out of Philadelphia. Again, musicians, singers, writers. I mean, it's a very just interesting place. There's not a lot of places in the country that can say that, right? It's not to say other places of the country don't have great musicians, but right. So let's talk about what you've done, right? And again, in my words, and let's just agree on this, Brian, that you are a world-class musician.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we can test this, right? Let's talk about where you've played. Let's talk about some of the big houses that you've played in, not just in this country, but around the world. Just help the audience out.
A lot. I mean, we've done stadiums of, you know, small houses, big houses. I've been blessed and fortunate to be able to travel around the whole world. Just to go back a little bit, you know, as I was coming up in church, and then I went in high school, and then I hooked up with this group, Pieces of a Dream, jazz group. So I went to high school with them, and then when I seen them play, my whole brain was just like messed up because I was really only exposed to gospel.
Right.
So I went home and told my mom, I'm like, you've been hiding music from me. Like, I heard this stuff at school, like I've never heard. She was like, boy, get out of here with that, listening to that devil music. So I had to educate mom.
That's kind of interesting.
But then those three components by me, that church foundation, then the classical, and then going to high school with the jazz cats, that's kind of like who I am and built my style.
Right.
So by the time I was 19, I was playing with Keith Pringle. I don't know if you remember him.
Absolutely.
So I did some gigs with Keith. He discovered me from playing with Gabriel Hardiman.
Remember him?
Gabriel Hardiman and Keith Pringle, and then I ended up on a stage with Richard Smallwood. I gave Richard Smallwood my card. He calls me, at that time, he was like really, really big. He calls me 2 weeks later and asked me could I be his substitute musician for a gig because his keyboard player couldn't make it. So I was like blown away. Went downstairs and told my mom, Richard Smallwood just called me. He wants me to play on a gig with him. I'm 19 years old.
Right.
And she told me get out of here because she didn't believe me. So I ended up doing that gig, and I was like, okay, I got to keep in mind I'm only a substitute.
Right.
It's gonna be going like that, but he gonna know I was there.
Right.
So I'm gonna learn his music. I'm not gonna go in there and do all these runs and all that. I just want to learn the solid chords, and I want to support the singers because that's what I'm there for.
Right.
And that's what I did. So after that gig, he gets back on the bus and he asked me to go to Florida, and then after that, I was just in.
Right. And
so that afforded me to be able to travel around the whole world with Richard. And then I met Edwin Hawkins, and then I did a play with him for 2 years, as well as playing for Richard Smallwood. So I got in with the whole Hawkins family, and you know, he would send me cities ahead to go teach the choir before he would get there. So that whole choral thing, you know, so I've had a lot of experience. Then I come back and I was playing with Patti LaBelle for 2 years at her club, and I was a music director there. It was called Chez LaBelle.
Oh, I remember.
And then, you know, recorded with Yolanda Adams, a bunch of people. OJ's. I went to Japan with the Temptations. I don't know if you remember them.
No one remembers the Temptations, right?
So right before,
I'll look them up though.
Right before Eddie Kendricks died, so I did that Japanese tour with them. So yeah, I've been blessed to be able to move around a little bit.
Right, and you've done some television.
Yeah, there was a show back in the day called the Jenny Jones Show.
Right. Yeah.
So a little bit of television.
Yeah.
So mostly just like on the road doing concert venues.
Right. But so again, so when I say world-class musician, I'm not wrong, right? You bring that talent, but also that discipline, because I'm sure you've met a lot of musicians who have, you know, phenomenal talent and chops.
Oh,
but they don't have musicianship. So how do you define musicianship, Brian?
Well, respect depends on where we're playing, what we're playing. If we're playing somewhere and we're supposed to be supporting a singer, and this is like the whole band, okay, so we have to think, you know, we all have our time to shine, but am I listening to this vocalist sing, or is everyone listening to me playing runs while she's singing?
Right.
So the whole band has to know how to fall back and support who's on stage, and then when it's your time to shine, then you shine.
Right. So
you I get a time to shine. You're there to support. You're there to support the singers, and that's it.
That's it. Right. Fair
we
enough.
know that you could do runs, but we're not here to hear that.
Right. So I feel that. So when you talk about traveling the world, how has world travel impacted your view, maybe even your worldview?
It helped me to expand in terms of different cultures. I kind of like when I travel, not only am I there to play music, but I kind of get soaked up in the culture. So I want to know where I'm at, what kind of food they eat, what do they like. You know, I want to go where the natives go, not necessarily where the tourists go, you know, if I have the time. Right. And I try to be respectful of that person's culture, because everybody don't always share your views. You can't preach to somebody if they're hungry. Feed them first.
Right. Right. And so what's your favorite country?
London. I like London for some reason.
Really?
Yeah.
It's not the food.
It's the fashion, it's the culture. You know, they speak English. I'm not really bilingual, so I don't really, you know, unless I have a translator, I'm not, you know. I really love the United States, to be honest with you. But if I was to live somewhere else, it would be London.
Okay. So I feel that I've let me see, London and Ireland. I was in Amsterdam a couple of years ago. My daughter was living there, working for Uber. So I went to go visit her. Phenomenal. That's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Place to put your foot in. But again, when you get to see that there's somewhere other than America, people think differently. You know, they eat differently, they speak differently, they interact differently. That we're not the center of the universe, right? It gives you an appreciation for those other cultures,
right?
So So you made a decision at some point as a musician that this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I knew that when I was a kid, when they first let me play for the children's choir, and after I played the very first song I ever played in church was an accomplishment for me, especially when the pastor wife wouldn't let me play. So I played, that one song for the children's choir, and it was like everybody was up there, clapping because they only knew me as like the little Brian, the usher.
Right.
So when I'm playing, I'm sitting at the piano, and all these people clapping for me. Not that I wanted, anything. Not I wasn't
Right.
even expecting it, but it
Right.
just happened. So I'm looking around and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I'm gonna always do this.
and you've done it well, and so I've always admired that, and people like you. I think about other people I know, feel like James Poyser and others who really have just Little John. I mean, people who've just made a decision that this is I bailed and went the corporate route, right? And so I've always kept music in my life, but I went a different.
That's why you have all the money. The corporate guys have all the money.
Well, so let me say this. I've been extremely fortunate, I think, from where I started to where I am. I mean, I'm just tremendously blessed to have accomplished what I have. But at the end of the day, though, music and having that creative expression plays a huge role in all of that. And I tell people, if you have a true creative outlet, it makes creativity available to you in all the other areas of your life. And if you really want to weave in and out of situations, I think people who are creative see things a little bit differently. And then so along with creativity comes curiosity. Mm-hmm. And so I also look at you as a very curious person. Like you said, if you travel, you're not going where the tourists go. Taking me to the natives, taking me to the epicenter. So how do you look at curiosity versus creativity?
Well, I'm always curious because I'm someone who loves to learn. You'll never know it all. So I'm always a sponge, willing to learn something that I don't know. Sometimes I even teach it, but I like to learn. Mm-hmm. So my creative side, I'm going to say first and foremost, it's not just me, it's a gift. It's a gift from God. Mm-hmm. And I try to explain that to my classical piano teacher, because some people come from the school that think music can only be taught, and I'm like, because he's like doing all these calculations, and you can't mix a minor third with this, and he's doing all these calculations, and I'm like, I don't know, it just sounds good. You got to ask God, and he gave me the gift. So I know that God anointed me. I know He gives me the gift, and if you read the book of James, it talks about a gift and how God gives you a gift. He gives it to you perfect. And it don't have nothing to do with the instrument.
Right.
You see, God didn't anoint me to play the piano and the organ. God just anointed me with a gift. I chose to play the piano and the organ. Just like anybody, they choose their instrument. He gives you the gift. But say, for instance, you play the piano, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
But if we lock you up in a room for a year and give you a trombone,
absolutely. Yeah.
You're going to come out playing the trombone.
Right.
Because it has nothing to do with the instrument. It's what's inside of you and your ability to hear. And we hear different. I'll give you another example. I was with some friends. We was on this tour, and I had my motorcycle gear on, and we was Louisiana, and we walked through the piano store, and as we were walking by, I saw the Bosendorfer in the window. Okay. So I'm like, oh wow, y'all hold up, I need to go in here. So I go in, and the salespeople around, and I was like, wow, I love that piano. It's got a black octave. Can I play it? And they was like, well, sir, we don't really allow people to play this one, but you can play this one. So I had to go in, and well, I didn't have to. I chose to go, and it was a spinet piano.
Right.
So I played Rachmaninoff, note for note, without the sheet music. Mm-hmm. But these people knew I knew how to read because I was playing it note for note, classical. Mm-hmm. And they was like turning red in the face. They was like, oh my gosh, because they're thinking, where's the music? Right. They don't understand gift. Then they was like, no, sir. Okay, please play this one. Then they went when you played $100,000 Bosendorfer.
Right.
And I was like, nope, I'm leaving because y'all judged me by how I looked. And I left.
Did you leave?
Yes. I mean, I probably looked like I was robbed. I had, the scarf, the boots, all that.
I've seen the photographs.
They ain't know what to think.
So let's talk about this too. I think that, again, as a musician, we understand this, and I'm going to say jazz and gospel probably have the most of this, and I'm sure it's in country and other music. But in gospel, 95% probably of everything we play is not written anywhere. And so if you were going to be, I would say, a proficient, accomplished musician, you need to have an ear, right?
Yeah.
Now, again, if people understand, like, well, you got 2 ears. So when we talk about your ear, explain to people what that really means.
That's the ability to be able to discern pitch, different tones. When you have an ear, you could identify from one chord going to the next. You can kind of like hear where a song is going, if it makes musical sense, if it don't make musical sense. Some people don't have that.
Right.
Right. They know how to sing a melody while a melody is playing, but you turn the melody off, they can't do that.
Right. Right.
So it's just a basic thing that you have. It's a gift that you have. It's like hard to explain.
Right. And a lot of the music, again, having some. It's funny you talk about Pieces of a Dream. I'm interested in some of your other jazz influences. I came in a total side door with like Chick Corea.
Right. Well, the piano player, he and I are kind of close now, but I've never seen nothing like him. The way he played, he was having his foot on top of the piano while he was playing, and all this crazy stuff. It was just like blew my mind. So then it opened me up to listen to other jazz artists like George Duke, and one of my favorites till today is Pat Metheny.
Mm-hmm.
Lyle Mays and that whole study. Chick Corea was a little bit too abstract for me, but even though I loved and appreciated his gift, definitely gifted. Even same thing with Herbie Hancock. I'm not like really an abstract player,
right?
But I definitely appreciate what they do. I mean, they're geniuses.
Right. Yeah, and you mentioned like George Duke. God bless him, man. Just phenomenal. Joe Sample.
Phenomenal. Joe Sample.
Yeah.
Rodney Franklin. I don't know if you ever heard of Rodney Franklin, but he was another major influence to me. And speaking of Thomas Whitfield, who was gospel, he actually asked me to play for him. We was in Colorado. This is before he passed away. And I was just like, all right, so you got to be kidding. And then he asked me, you think I'm too big? And I was like, yes, you're too big. And he laughed and everything. So he said he's going to give me a call, in a couple of weeks. And next thing I know, he passed away. I was done.
Wow. It's funny. I was with, had the privilege to hang out with Donald Lawrence one evening in Chicago. And he told a very similar story that Thomas was getting involved in his first project. And right before everything was getting ready to go down, Thomas Whitfield unfortunately fell. And Twinkie, let me just say this: I sat on the organ bench next to Twinkie. That's how good that was. So I'll leave that at that. But she's phenomenal. He was phenomenal, but very clearly ahead of his time. You go back and listen to those early albums that he did. Like nobody was doing anything like that. And I played a workshop once in Ohio with a guy who did play for him. And said to me that one of the reasons Thomas Whitfield played the way that he did is because he has small hands. So like you have larger hands, so you have reach that he didn't have. So those clusters of chords.
That really have anything to do with it?
Yeah, but he played those clustered chords. Well, think about your reach, Brian. Like you can easily go from C to the E above that C. I know you can.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, some people can't do that, but he said that's why he played these clusters of chords and had all that speed. That's just what someone said who played for him. So just going by what he said. So, we're in the midst of this pandemic, and it has been a tremendous, tremendous blow to musicians. right? People who perform, people who make their living through music, as well as other industries. How do you assess the impact to people who are full-time musicians?
I definitely recognize that it has impacted a lot of musicians. And it's a sad situation because some musicians, that's all they do. I have a lot of friends who are musicians. That's all they know how to do is play music
Mm-hmm.
and sleep. Play music. That's all they know. So they can't even think outside of that.
Right. So, and so one of the reasons I definitely wanted to have this conversation with you is that I know that that is not the case for you. You have other interests. You have things that you've done. So let's just talk about Bryant Pugh, you know, when he's not sitting behind an instrument, whether it's the piano, organ, or steel drums, which I wouldn't want to get back to steel drums.
Oh gosh.
But what, so talk about Brian away from.
My old pastor called me all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm just all over the place. And I had to recognize, yeah, you know what? He's right. So one of them, the songs on my new CD, that new CD or whatever you want to call it, MP, what do we call it now?
It's still an album.
Okay. Album. One of the tunes is called All Over the Place. But I'm going through different genres of music.
Mm-hmm.
But aside from me being a musician, I've always been like an entrepreneur, like businessman. I always think business.
Okay.
Things have to make sense to me.
Okay.
So aside from music, I know how to make money.
Right.
It's not music.
All right, but that's important though. So that's what I'm saying. So how do you?
Well,
how do you do that?
As you know, I have a crystal business.
Love the crystal business, by the way. That's awesome.
Thank you. I mean, it definitely got me through this year.
Right.
My crystal business, my numbers is better than it was last year.
Mm-hmm.
Not being a pandemic.
Right. So where do you operate the business out of? I know you have at least a kiosk.
There's a mall called the Cherry Hill Mall in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And I was operating. I did it all year a couple years ago, and it took so much of my life. So now I just do it seasonally. I'll come in November, December, and I just shut down this past Sunday, and I'll go back next November. But I still sell them all year long. People call me, or I have a little setup with an Asian lady. She sells them for me in a nearby flea market.
Yeah.
That's business.
Yeah, but see, that's called so. And on my side, we call that scale, right? Anytime you can make money and not have to be around the thing necessarily to make that money, when you can get the effort that's bigger than the effort that you could singularly bring to something, that's what we call building scale. And that's to your point. A lot of people who make their living doing one thing don't understand diversity. Do more than one thing. They also don't understand scale. Like, so if you wanted to, you have a template. If you wanted to make it bigger, you already know how to do that. Right. You could operate out of several places if you chose to do that. And that's the difference, I think, in what you do from what other people do. So I think there was photography.
Yeah, I had a photography shop for 3 years, and then, you know, the cell phones became big and everybody started taking pictures with their cell phones. So I says, okay, I see what this is doing, because it was shutting the photography business down. Everybody got pictures in their phone, and the phones are getting better and better.
All the time.
So now I'm gonna take advantage of what's in your phone. You send me a picture out of your phone, I'm gonna make it 3D, and I'm gonna turn it into a crystal.
Right.
And it's gonna take that picture that's in your phone to another level. So that's like 90% of my business was in people's cell phones.
Well, yeah, the one I sent you definitely just came out of the cell phone. But it's a phenomenal. It's really art when it's done. It's art, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's other things. Again, I think this is so important, and I don't know that people who think the way that you do are necessarily super special. I think there's something like if you just see what's around, like you see this image right here. You know, my office is back there, my studio's back there, the gym's back here. I got another, but I have all these things that are going on. Like right now, I have a big development project that's happening with a team in Pakistan.
Nice.
We won't release it. We won't talk about it publicly too much for another month or so. But there's just always a lot that I've had going on, like doing seminars, and I do coaching and mentoring and all this sort of stuff. Is how do you get people to identify? And the reason I say it's not special, I think it's truly a gift. I think everyone has it. I just don't know if they know how to access it. And if they have the ideas, do they ever get out of their head, or do they talk
Some people are
themselves
not.
out of it?
Some people, they just want to. They just comfortable staying in the box, and that's where they stay.
Hmm.
You know, I'll make a face mask for people. I make T-shirts. You know, on my downtime. Um, there's a whole bunch of stuff I like to do, but I do stuff that I enjoy doing.
Right. Right.
You know,
So how do you? So would you? I want to ask the question the right way in terms of. I'm certain you would encourage people, but have you ever, coached or taught somebody? Because there's a method to what you do, right? How would you instill that into someone else? Like even some of these musicians who clearly could do something else, right? And I believe in the age of information, you can learn almost anything, right? You got YouTube University. How would you encourage someone to diversify, and even the people who are really phenomenal musicians, to take that creativity and put it in something else?
like, be who you are. Look for other things that interest you. Don't just do everything for money. I don't chase money. I chase dreams. It's just money comes as a result of it. But I never chase money. I do something I love to do. Other people take interest in it and they want to buy it or whatever, and then the money comes as a result of it. But I always do, because your quality of life is important too.
Right.
Not just about always chasing the dollar.
So if you don't mind, deep dive that a little bit, because there are a lot of people that their whole thing is, as they say now these days, got to get that bag. And then they're miserable.
Do things that's within your means and something that you aspire to do. Like I've traveled all around the world playing music, right? So I'm not gonna say that, that's not exciting to me anymore, but I've been there and I've done that and I appreciate it. But now where I'm at in life, small things matter to me.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much big stuff. So, I went out and bought this RV and
I was about to say, Brian, you say little things matter. You don't really do little things. I've seen this RV.
No, but
in the video,
see it as boring. Like I'll go to a campsite and I'll just sit down and just listen to nature.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to other people that's not in the music industry. Just have intriguing conversations, intellectual conversations with people.
Right.
Not related to music. It's just a big world out here.
Right.
And so that's my therapy. I just like to go different places. This past summer, I went to Texas. I've never driven to Texas before because I'm always used to flying everywhere.
Right.
But I'm always flying. I always get to the destination, but I always miss the journey.
Right.
So now I want to catch the journey.
Right. Did you do Canada? Where else did you go? I follow you. You went somewhere else that's like, oh, what's he doing there?
North Carolina, South Carolina. Then I went to Mississippi. I got up out of there real quick.
And that's why you spent some time with Ben Tankard.
I went to Ben Tankard's spot, spent some time with him. Then he gave me some great advice. And we don't always have to be combative or we comparing ourselves
to the competition, right?
Because I don't know if you saw on the video I made. These guys was talking about Ben Tankard and he don't do all these runs and all this kind of stuff. And I had to shut him up. I'm like, how many records you got?
Right. Right. Oh, I saw the video.
So why you talking about this man?
Right. Right. And he has, aside from his own music, he's done so much, and people wouldn't even know that he's done it. He stepped in with Yolanda Adams when Thomas Whitfield passed away. I mean, he's a different type of dude though, and I appreciate I've always appreciated Ben Tankard.
That's why I connected with him. So I'm there, and everybody, we got these big elaborate studios, and y'all ain't really saying nothing with your Pro Tools and all this kind of stuff. This guy got this iMac, a little keyboard, but he on the Billboard charts. Right. He got none of them plugins, y'all got none of that stuff. He using GarageBand.
Right.
It's so big and bad, but your Pro Tools ain't putting out nothing. This guy's on big Billboard charts with GarageBand.
So you know what? And so here's what I can tell you about that. Man, I didn't think we were going to talk about this, but you brought it up, so we on it now. I think that the competitive environment that has been created instills fear. And so when people have stuff, they won't put it out because they don't think about the people that it could reach, the people that it could help, the people that it could bless. They think about the people who might criticize it, and they just never do it. How do you, not just musically, but in all these areas, what is the role of the boldness and the courage? Where does that fit into the equation with you?
In terms of other musicians?
Just in terms of doing what you do, because you break the mold. You're outside the box.
I'm just like a risk taker. Like, for example, when I did my crystal business at the mall, they told me that the rent was going to be, this is for a kiosk. They told me that, you know, I'm thinking in my head, what's the rent going to be? $1,300 at a mall, whatever. That lady came out and was like, going to be $8,000 for November and $8,000 for December.
Was that with power? Sometimes they charge you extra for the power. Did they give you power?
Yeah, one little plug. So I thought about it. I'm like, okay, I know this place got a bunch of foot traffic. I don't look at the price. I look at the value.
Okay.
So that was a leap of faith because I was getting ready to get up and walk out. But then I thought about it and I said, you know what? I'm going to do it. That's taking a risk.
Right.
That's 16 grand in 2 months.
Right. Yeah. And it worked out.
But because of the volume of people, we did 70 in 1 month.
Right.
Of course, that wasn't all profit. I had to pay for crystals. I had to pay for employees, you know. But giving them 8 grand, it wasn't nothing.
Right.
But it was a risk.
So when you come out on the other side of that risk and you win, so what does that do for your confidence and your self-esteem, your sense of what does that do for you when you come out on the other side?
It inspires me to go do something else and take another risk. Now I'm getting ready to surprise you because I'm getting ready to do something else. You're just gonna think I'm complete. Nobody, I ain't tell nobody. I ain't make this public or nothing. But I'm gonna tell you, you're my friend. But I'm involved in something else now.
And this doesn't surprise me. Like I said, I have a couple of my buddies. They ask me, "How do you do all this stuff that you do?" I'm driven to do it. I'm not tired doing it. I'm inspired doing it. You know what I mean?
I love it.
Yeah.
So I shut my mall down Sunday. I moved out Sunday. I'll go back next November. I started trucking school 2 days ago. No, yesterday, Monday, I started.
Oh boy. You getting a CDL?
Yeah, I got my CDL permit, but I need the CDL license and I need the experience. And I think on this one I may contradict myself a little bit because on this one I might be chasing the money.
Okay.
A lot of money in trucking.
Boy, oh boy.
You a businessman, you already know.
Oh yeah. No, I totally get it. But the thing is, it's here. Let me just say this, and not just to you. I'm saying this. Make sure you kind of leave in the frame there, bro.
I'm sorry.
But I'm saying this because I had issues with this years ago when people try to identify you as one thing, right? It can be very restricting. And so again, not saying to you, but really for the people who are watching this, is never let other people define who you are or what you're going to do. That's the fastest way to create your own person. That's why my life motto is live free. This is totally what I'm all about. And that came out of actually some really horrible experiences, and one of them was cancer. But I'm like, when you realize, you know what, I could have died. If I did, you know, people be shocked and surprised and sad and sing some songs, but eventually they're going to get back to their own life. So why would I not do what I want to do in life over the opinions of people who would eventually forget about me? I'm about it. I just do it.
I agree 100%.
Yeah. So
I figure I do this while the music world is asleep. You know, technically everybody on their Zoom calls playing their little songs or whatever. Okay. I'm gonna go out and get this under my belt, and then if the industry turns back around, at least I'll have this under my belt.
And this is what I'm saying.
My life, my financial security will never be in the hands of a church or a pastor that could just cut you off like that.
Right. And
I always
we know all about that.
I always be able to jump in the truck and make some money if I had to, or if I want to.
Right.
And I like it. I like driving big stuff.
Clearly.
So,
But there's this freedom to doing what it is that you want to do, what you want to do, right? And that's when it's all said and done. I don't want my life to be I checked off the boxes on what everybody else wanted me to do. Like when you bury me with a smile on my face because I did what I wanted to do.
yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
I just don't want to be in a box. It's a big world out there.
Right. And so so let's segue really quickly. I want to go back to music here for a second, and not from the musician standpoint, but from the technology standpoint. So since we've come along, a lot has changed in terms of technology with music. How help people understand, because I'm thinking even back then, the first digital pianos were probably coming along, but the first sequencers were coming along. And now, so just from your vantage point, in your view, how do you think about how technology has changed the game?
It's made it's created more opportunities for musicians to be able to afford this equipment in their own home and to be creative and to be able to make music on their own and express their ideas through the digital format. Whereas before you had to go pay for studio time. Now we can just do it at the house.
Do it at the house. And it's hurt a lot of big studios though.
It has.
Right.
But we have to be like the Sons of Issachar. You got to be able to change with the times.
Right.
Because some of us still have 8-track mentalities in a digital world. You're gonna be left behind.
You're gonna be left behind. And some of those big recording studios are gone. I mean, I remember what the hourly rates were. Even in art, you couldn't get in someone for like less than $150, $200, $250 an hour.
Correct.
And and you can, but if you're, and I'm thinking maybe you were the same way, but we've made those investments, right? Like I remember having a 4-track and an 8-track, and I remember my first mixer was a 12 channel, and then the 24, and then the 16, and then you get these digital boards. So we've invested, quite a bit.
At maybe 16, my first keyboard was $2,200. My mother thought that I had lost my mind. But I mean, I just always had a standard like that. I want what's out there, not necessarily the best, but something that's going to help me to be able to create what's in my mind, help me be more creative.
Right.
I don't necessarily have to keep up with the Joneses and get what you have or get what that person has, but whatever's going to help me to be more creative so that I can be the best that I can be.
So you're clearly an independent thinker. Have you always been that way?
Yes.
So no inspiration.
I'm alone.
It's
hard for me to relate to people.
Really?
I'm all over the place. Yes.
So someone might call that eccentric or eclectic. Do you consider yourself to be eccentric? Whatever that. I don't even know if I know exactly what that means.
No, but I just, my mom always tell me, you just go wherever way your head turns. That's just the way you go.
Right. See, the thing is, I wouldn't probably put the label of eclectic or eccentric on me because in my mind, I'm 100% normal because I just am the way that I am.
In your mind, but somebody else may view you different.
Oh, and you hear it all the time.
The average person views me as normal, even though I'm a little crazy. I ride boats. I mean, I ride boats too, right? So I'm at the boat, and when I'm at the boat marina, I run that marina, like, because I'm like one of the only ones that could just dock without the help of other people. So my friends at the marina, they know me as a boater. So I tell them, man, you should go to church with me. I play the organ at church. They're like, you don't play no organ, yo. Come on. They don't even see me as a musician. They only know me as a boater.
Right. And so you have interests. So you have RVs, you boat, motorcycles.
Yeah.
Right. Now
I just got another one too. It's called a Grommet.
Huh?
I just got another one.
Really?
I haven't written it yet. It's called a Grommet. It's a little small one that I could put on the back of the RV. So when I get to the park I got my little Grommet and I can be out.
It's so funny. I have 2 motorcycles, and since I moved to Missouri, I don't ride my motorcycles that often.
What you have? Oh, maybe that's another conversation.
I mean, I have Rice Rockets. You have big bikes, right? And so my first real bike, I bought a Kawasaki Ninja, right? That was
Nice.
but that was my
600 or
learning
1,000?
bike. But
You got a 600 or 1,000?
No. Let's go back. My first, that was only 250 because I was learning.
Oh,
So when I was learning, I got the 250. I had it for like a month,
okay.
right? But then I sold it, and then I got my Suzuki Katana 600, which I still have,
You can
right?
do
But it
wheelies on that one.
is jetted. It's got the who makes that pipe on there? Is it starts with a Y? I can't even think of a brand right now.
Yamamoto?
Yeah, just something like that. One of those. But so I got that, and then I have another 6, which is a Honda, which is more of even more of a sport touring bike. I got it because I wanted to be able to take long rides. But dude, out here they're so crazy on the roads. I felt more comfortable in Philadelphia riding my motorcycle than I do out here. So they have accidents here. You see cars flipped over. When you see cars flipped over, that means nobody was paying attention.
No.
Nothing. I don't mean.
And you know I live in New Jersey. I don't live in Philadelphia.
Okay.
Right. But I
Okay.
ride out in Jersey because Philadelphia, they doing a little bit too much.
But you have all these other interests, right? And see, that's when people look at it. Well, you make the money. I need to make money because I have all these interests. That's why I need it.
Because I like big toys.
Right. It's not. I never just sit and look at money. I don't go to the bank and say, give me some stats. I never look at. It's just I want to be able to express. It allows me to be able to just explore things that I'm curious about. If I want to read a book, I can buy this book. If I want to get this toy, I buy this toy. But a lot of things I get because I learn. All right, so we'll jump back in. So you have an interest in many things. One of them, which I was so shocked I saw it on your Facebook page, is the steel drums. And you love the steel drums. Where did this come from?
I was on a cruise, and I think I was going to Greece or something. I was the piano player for like 2 nights on Royal Caribbean, I think that was. And the other entertainment, as everybody's partying, they had the steel pan player. And I was like, that sounds amazing. And I go up there and I'm watching the guy play it, and I'm thinking to myself, when I get back home, I'm getting one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I go back home, I call Sam Ash or Guitar Center. Hey, will y'all have any the steel pans? How much are they? They was like, we don't have that. So then I started doing research. You cannot buy those in the States. Not a good one.
Really?
No. Where you gonna go unless you buy it off somebody? So I did a lot of research. It traced back to Trinidad. I had to pay somebody to make one for me.
Are you serious? So how do you tell somebody what you want?
Well, it's a C-pan, so they come in different configurations.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted the one that you play the melody on.
So what are the other types?
There's other types with different, bass notes, different notes. You'll see some people playing 2 of them.
Mm-hmm.
So they both have different octaves.
Wow. Okay. So
you're not gonna find on the one that I have, you're not gonna find like a low G, but on the other pan you'll find a low G.
Right.
But you're not gonna find no high C. On mine, you'll have a high C.
Right.
So that's another whole culture within itself. So I did a whole lot of research, and I really want to go to Trinidad because I want to go. They have this thing called Carnival every year.
Yeah, right.
It's like in Trinidad, you're born to play a steel pan.
Right.
So the instrument, the sound just intrigued me so much. So yeah, I paid this guy to make me one and ship it to me.
Wow. Now here's the thing. How long did it take you before you could play it?
Oh wow, because unlike a piano, the notes is not like C, D, E, F, G in a systematic order. On that pan, everything is all over the place.
Really?
The C is here, the F is somewhere else, the A flat is all the way up here. The high C is in the middle, the A is over here, the B is over here.
Right.
So I just had to start training myself and with anything, practice.
Mm-hmm.
I actually did like not last summer, summer before last, 2 gigs as a steel pan player.
Did you really?
I make my own tracks and then I just play the steel pan with it. They loved it. I knew I wasn't the greatest, but they loved it.
Man, I love the freedom. I love it.
free.
Like I said, I speak to other musicians, people, I won't even say any names, but people that you know that have so much good music in them and things that they could share, they just won't let it out because they fear the criticism. I know phenomenal singers who won't ever record anything because they're like, I don't have the look, you know, that whole thing. And I think it robs the world of so much good that could be done. And sometimes your biggest blessing is when you're willing to bless somebody else. Just share what you have and then see what comes back, you know, see what comes back to you.
That's true.
So anyway, I'm going to wrap on this, but man, I can't even tell you how much I appreciate this.
My pleasure. It's good talking to you.
Yeah, this is.
And you're a phenomenal guy. You know, you could teach me how to get into the corporate and the stocks and all that. I know you into it. You know, you show us how to make the money.
But man, I've you know, again, from the day that you walked in the New Jay in Twin Oaks all those years ago up until now, man, just always admired and respected your gift, the way you carry yourself, your precision around the instrument. Now I understand more. So even in some ways, some of this episode was really selfishly for me. I know a lot of other musicians are going to want to see this, but there's a process to what you do, and I think that a lot of what you do and the way you do it and the way you live your life is applicable to so many people. Which is why I said to you, I think this is going to help a lot of folks.
Man, I went to Oscar Peterson's grave site. That's how much I admire him. I got on a subway and a bus to go to his grave site.
Really?
In Canada.
Really?
Yes, me and my girlfriend. Yep.
Wow, I had no idea that's where he was buried.
He was like, "Where are you going? Why are we on the subway? We going to see Oscar Peterson."
So, any parting words for the audience? Because there's something that we didn't. I'm just hoping people heard a lot of what you said, man. Because you are living your life in such a courageous way, and it's working for you. What would you say to the person who's just, I'm afraid? What would your word of encouragement be?
You'll never get ahead being afraid. You're just gonna stay where you are. Never live in fear.
Right.
And go after what's reachable. Some people, like, we know we're not going to the moon. We know we're not gonna be no astronaut, but you can see that you could play an instrument. Go for it and practice and nurture your gift. Practice.
Right.
Not just depend on the technology. You'll get more gratification out of playing when the electric get cut off and you can still be able to play something, or a guitar, whatever you choose to play.
Oh man,
you'll still be able to function.
We didn't even talk about the tragedy of transposers. I didn't even touch that, Brian. It's left. I didn't even. Well, we grew up when you had to know all those keys. If you didn't know them, you was gonna be embarrassed.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't really know what a transpose button was until I got further along. I'm like, what is that? So you got to press that in the unit? No. You got to not play in every key.
All right, so we'll wrap on this. Hey, folks, thanks for hanging in there with us. Just remember, the project on the table is your life. If you don't work on it, nobody else will.
Be free, be who you are. Don't try to be somebody else. God gifted everybody individually. You're special. Whoever you are, you're special. Let us appreciate you for who you are. Stop trying to be somebody else.
Yeah, well said.
Thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it. I'm sorry I'm kind of beat down because I've been driving a tractor trailer all day. Like, yeah.
My man. All right, we out of here.